In a stateless society, I can roughly envision three forms of the provision of services. The first is pure private. That is a company with private property that sells its services to customers on an individualistic basis. When talking about a free market, this is what most people envision, everything being done by some company. Now, I believe that most of what goes on in a stateless society will be done in this manner, but you don't have to believe that in order to oppose the state, as there are other ways resources can be apportioned. The second way is the welfare provision, or the monetary transfer provision. This is where services are apportioned out to individuals in a purely private manner, but allowances are given to people for various services. For example, a township may decide that everyone should have access to a certain level of health care, the details to be worked out however they are worked out. Thus, everyone in the township has to pay for universal health care in order to remain a member of that township. If a member of the township disagrees with the policy, then he may, or perhaps must, secede from the township, which is to say he will no longer receive or pay for the services of that township. If the contract of his home required that he remain in the township in order to own that home, then he would be in breach of contract if he chose to secede and retain ownership of that home, with whatever those consequences would be, which is a topic for another video. Another form of welfare would be charity, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with. A third form of the provision of a service is communitarian. This is where the township directly manages the provision of a service. This can be optional or mandatory for members within that township to pay or receive, but the point is that it is managed by the government of that township. And yes, I said government, as I believe the township would be governed in the same way a club is governed. This is different from a state. So one can support nothing but the communitarian provision of services and still be an anti-statist. That is, you can be a flaming socialist and still oppose the state. What's more is that a completely socialist and a completely private township can exist side by side. However, I personally believe that the communitarian provision of services is a product of intellectual laziness. Communitarian provision of services is a conceptual crutch, much like God or the state. I see communitarian provision as a last resort, but it is important to know that communitarian provision is indeed an option if the results of pure private provision are not to one's liking.